Okay, so let's start a bit controversial. Oh, you can see my mouse, great. No, a topic nobody wants to talk about it, but I swear we won't be talking about AI anymore. It's just this one slide. Because there's a lot of questions when talking about game localization and growing skills and putting a lot of efforts on growing your own career in this field and the skill set that you build to be better. What to do when the AI is here and everyone is talking about replacing humans and everything. I think nobody can promise that AI will that the human translation will survive. I think we all are in the moment that it's impossible to say, but I think that based on the past and how the civilization was growing and changing, I think we should be seeing game localization as a craftsmanship, and game localization going more into being a premium service than being only a machine thingy. So I think that when we are talking about the future of game localization, we should be focusing on putting us as a premium service provider. And that means that we should be really oriented, quality oriented, and thinking very consciously about the quality that we are providing to our clients. Let it be agencies or let it be a direct clients, whatever we are working in a way, whatever way we are working in the industry, it's important to think about what is the value that we are giving to our clients and to the players by our localization text. So the question is how to raise the quality of our translations, how to create even better game translations that we are already doing. So this is the main topic of this webinar. And yeah, let's start. So before we dive into the core skills that will help us provide better quality translations, why it's me who will talk about this topic. So my name is Asia Mleczak. I'm Polish. I localize in English to Polish language pair. I started in the industry way back and as an intern, then as a freelancer. Then I was part of the localization team, and now I'm the owner of a small localization agency. For over 6 years, I'm training people in game localization. I was basically working with Polish game translators, then was working with Women in Localization organization, and was providing webinars and training for localizers around the world. And I was also invited into guest lectures at universities abroad. So I had pretty lots of experience in that, and now I want to share the knowledge also with the international game localizers to help everyone be better and to excel in game localization. Why I started the game localizers is a project that basically is my idea from when I started working in the game localization industry, because I didn't have anyone to learn from. I didn't have any resources online. It wasn't that popular back then for people to share anything on social media. I'd say that social media didn't exist back then, but yes, I feel very old when saying that. But yes, so now it's kind of my personal mission to share my knowledge and help others do not only just localizations, but do make great localization that players really enjoy and that you can be proud of on any level you work on the game. So let's start with the first skill category. But before you say it's basic and leave the webinar, just wait and hear me out. We know that in the game localization, knowing the source language, the language that we localize games from, it's not enough. It's not enough to be a native speaker. It requires way more knowledge about the language, about the grammar, about the anything specific. And in game localization, it's even more difficult because in source text in games have their let's say challenges, and the quality is very different. I know that it's very difficult for people who are coming to game localization from different fields, where they are, they know that under after 3 degrees of quality assurance, it's proofread. So in game localization, usually in game dev, usually the texts aren't proofread when they are put in localization. Sometimes they have errors, they have grammar errors, and it's important for us to know why the mistakes are happening, what are the reasons for them. So, for example, we know that a lot of game developers aren't English isn't their native language, so they don't have this much proficiency as, for example, professional writers in English. So a lot of mistakes can be actual calques from different languages, or can be structured in a pretty complicated way because it's the effect of how it was taught at school, for example. So we need to remember that the game texts are sometimes more like drafts even, and in game localization we should be following the correct structures and everything for our target text. So being aware of mistakes that may happen in source text, knowing how to deal with them, understanding where they came from, um, asking about clarifications if we are not sure what they mean. Those skills are very important because without them, it's sometimes it's not possible to correctly translate a sentence that you don't really understand what it's saying. So it's one of the challenges within the skill set. Then there's also the importance of being up to date with our source language and the styles and the linguistic trends. We all know that now with the Gen Z, and to be honest, with all generation, when I was a teenager, my grandparents also were saying that our language is weird and they don't get it. So it's the media like to talk about the Gen Z language. It's difficult, but it comes to gaming because Gen Z aren't very small kids anymore. They're adults, and many games will be focused directly to them and not to millennials or older generation of players. So it's important to be up to date with the language if it comes to let's say popular words or phrases or trending phrases that are only popular in some moment of time, but they will be preserved in multiple games, like in the achievement's name or some Easter eggs that may happen in the game. So, of course, it's super important. If you have any questions about the skill set or anything, just please write in the chat, and I will, of course, get back to it. I have 7 categories, so I will go through them, but I can stop at any minute. So if you want to talk about something further, just say it. I will just give me a second. Okay, so there's no surprise that the second category of skills in game localization is knowledge of your target language, so the language that you are translating game into, and knowledge of the culture and the pop cultures of your region, so of the region when the language you are translating to will be used. I would say it's way more important. No, I mean, it's hard to classify which skills are important or not, but the great knowledge of the target language is one of the most important elements of how your localization will be perceived. So, because this is the outcome of your work, the quality of your text will be directly visible in games and players will interact with it. So, if you're not fluent in the target language, if you are not able to build great sentences within this language, there's a lot of work to do. As I said, it's the crucial part. So one of the skills here, things to do to be better at this skills category, is polishing your translation skills and linguistic proficiency. So it will be active learning about linguistic aspects, about translation techniques, about localization topics, because everything, there's no one who knows it all, and it's always a learning path. And basically, working on your linguistic correctness is a lifelong adventure. because the language evolves, the same with the source language, but also our writing improves over time. So the more we have experience, the better we are, especially that we are doing it consciously, so we can think about how our translation can be better. What can we do to be the text to be more fluent in reading or more natural sounding? This is the growth. This is the skill. It's best when it's feedback based. So every time when you have opportunity to work in a team, or when you know that there will be multiple steps next to translation, ask for feedback. Sometimes even one sentence can change how you perceive your own translation skills. One, I don't know, note about your grammar mistake on the punctuation mistakes can improve your skills tremendously. And I really, really recommend asking for feedback. Sometimes it's not easy to receive feedback, especially if it's not super good or there's a lot of notes. But honestly, it's the fastest way to know what's wrong with our text and how to be better. And there's no words to highlight how important it is and how fast you will be you will change your translation skills this way. The most important thing basically is besides all the correctness and grammar skills and how you have your writing talent, for example, the most difficult part is to not do calcs and literal translations. I will talk about it a bit more later on during this webinar, but what's also the advice I would say to you, that always read again your translation after you finish your work. Give it some time and get back to the text and focus only on the target text, and then you will see the text in a very different light. You will see how your brain will perceive it in a very different way, because your brain will focus only on the natural sounding of the text and will hopefully forget about the source text, because this way we can find a lot of our own mistakes before a proofreader will find them, or a client or players. What's of course the worst possible scenario here. So yes, so this is about the target language, and then pop culture and culture. Of course, when we are native speakers, we are we are set in our culture pretty well, but expanding this knowledge about anything that's important for your culture, for your country or region, is super beneficial. The more you know, the better you can localize the text and not only translate them. So it's important. The same goes for pop culture. Games are a medium of pop culture, and very often we work with lots of references to the contemporary pop culture, for example, but also to the pop culture that was, valid in like 20 or 30 years ago, as nostalgic aspects are very, very much alive in game dev, and they are currently trending, I think, even. So those are, those tips are very essential for skills category number 2, that is target language and pop culture. Then we have a third skills category, understanding games. So of course, game localization is a specialization like law or medical translation, and not knowing this field can cause tremendous mistranslations. Of course, the effect isn't that serious as for example, legal agreement errors or medical equipment translation manual errors, but still they affect the game in different spectrums, but still it can be serious. It can be that our mistakes lead to game not starting, and finding the error behind it may be very difficult. Then there are players who will say that they want to a return of their money because the game is badly translated. The things are got even more extreme when we are talking about esports, when the translation in the when the mistakes in translation may lead to esport players not agreeing with the results of the game. And as we know, in esports, the prizes are very high, and the pressure is also very high. So translation, if translation is affecting the gameplay, it's very critical that it's correct, and everything is well done there. So for understanding games, there are of course multiple methods how you can work with those skills. I would say that the first one is playing games as a localization skill growing method. So when you play your games and you enjoy it, of course, but it's very important to look at all the text aspects, like where the text are appearing, what role they having in this game. Are they important for players, or they are more skippable and interesting only for core players of the game? What terminology is used in the game? Is it depends on the platforms, for example? I would say, of course, it depends on the platform, as consoles have their own terminology that we have to follow, and it's very important, especially for the compliance phase of game development. It's also important for us as game localizers to understand different genres and how they affect the game text and how they affect game localization decisions. Because in each game we are making lots of decisions, how to translate it, how to formulate the sentence, which terminology to use. Should we use the style that it goes to for it will be approachable by kids, or it's directly targeted to adults? There's a lot of questions like that, and the awareness of how game genres affect this is super crucial. And you will avoid a lot of mistranslations when you focus on understanding genres, even if you don't play them. There's a lot of techniques how to get to know them. It's watching webinars, watching game streams, reading about game genres. Everything that can expand your knowledge about the games, is important and will help you in long term. So there are also elements like narrative design concepts. When you're playing the game, you can see how the narrative is built, what's happening with the hero of the adventure game, for example, or how the narrative is, for example, used in the UI. In many AAA games, we have additional parts of the game when you can read information about the monsters that you encountered in the game, or your or the skills that you are using with your character in the game. So understanding how the narrative is used there and how it's designed for a player's experience is important, because then you can understand when the parts of the text you are localizing, how they will be used in the game, how players will interact with your translations. It's super helpful, and to be honest, it's also easier to translate it this way, because when you know the context, even a small part of it, you can at least imagine the text, that how it will be used in the game, and then you can provide a smoother translation, basically. So one other aspect of understanding games that is not related to the games themselves, but to the localization projects, and those are project reference materials and the knowledge how to use them smartly. Because for some games, I know if you're already receiving such text or not. It depends on the project you are working on, or on your experience. It varies how many of them you will receive. For some project, you will get the whole game design document, so the document that can be thousands of pages long, because it's the document that is available to all people involved in the process of making the game. Sometimes it's just a one-page text, and sometimes it's just one sentence. But when you receive the project reference materials, it's important to find a way how to work with them, judging your the deadlines you have for the project, and the skills that help you navigate the materials in an efficient way, so you can find information easily. So to do that, it's very good to take a look at the materials early, even before you start the translation, just to know where to look for the information, and when to get back to them when you need it during the translation. There's a lot of hidden information about the game there, and it's super useful to understand the mechanics, the lore, the story of the characters in the game, what will happen to the characters, what players will be interacting with or what's happening within the narrative. I would take the look to the chat. Sometimes Nick says sometimes though don't using current gen language feels a bit like trying too hard. Oh yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's I think it's a huge challenge for us if we are not proficient in modern language to try to use it the way that it still feels natural to the players. Because if we overdo it, it just sounds lame, and if we don't do it, the text may sound a bit off, especially in the context of the game that is supposed to feel like super modern and fun for a younger audience. So it's very tricky to navigate in this area because we never know, and if it's difficult, we also have to figure a way how to be better at this. If we can brainstorm our ideas, how to follow the fancy way of speaking of young people or something. So yeah, I definitely agree that if we will go too far with that, it's bad outcome still. Harriet is saying that the Merriam-Webster online dictionary now has a slang section, including various Gen Alpha words. Skibidi toilet. Oh yeah, that's perfect. I absolutely hate skibidi toilet because translating it into Polish is impossible. You have to use the English words, and if you want to, if in one project we had to translate it that it's understandable because it was related to the mechanics, and it wasn't. It was impossible work, and yes, I don't like it personally, but it's our work to do it and find a way how to deal with stuff like that. I think it's a challenge that sometimes may be very, very rewarding when you find the right solution for that. And Harry's also saying that there's also Urban Dictionary. I agree. It's my help for many, many, many years, and I cannot recommend it more. So yes, thank you, Harriet, so much, and Nix for sharing that. Maria is saying that I'm curious, how did you translate it, skibidi toilet? Oh yeah, let's not go into that. We basically translated toilet, but not skibidi. We decided that it's the part of how people talk, and in the context of the game, it should still work. But I believe that in other projects, you would need to talk more with the developers or writers about that and show what are your ideas for that and if it still works with their creative idea. So in such situation, I think it's all the solution when you really have multiple options how to deal with stuff like that. You actively communicate with your client. So you say that it's very tricky. We have this option, this option, this option, and this has those benefits, and here things may be a bit worse, and this is because why? Well, it's why. I hope it helps. Yeah, it's tricky with because there's usually no good solution. There are like multiple different solutions, but we can't say if it's good or not. So communicating with the client and letting them decide is also one of the strategy that helps maintaining the good quality. And sometimes we just have to accept that our choice won't be the best that could be, but we have to still try. It means Harriet says it means whatever you want it to mean. Yeah, definitely, that's true. So it's all about the context. That there was a specific context because there was actual toilet in the game. Yes, games are very, very, very different. So, yes, thanks. Okay, then the first category I want to talk with you about is understanding the game localization industry. Ha, you didn't expect that, I bet. So it's always easier to work on your skills and work in general when you know the context. And here I'm not talking about the context of in-game context only, but also about the processes and workflows in the localization industry. Of course, it will depend on the client. Of course, it will depend on the agency who's covering the localization process. But knowing that there may be multiple processes is very important because then you know also what to expect and what kind of questions to ask and to who to come to for help. So, for example, we should know that there are different roles in game localization, and knowing if in your project there will be, for example, game testing phase, game localization testing phase, it's important because then you can ask some questions and ask them to be checked by testers directly in the game, because, for example, you don't have enough materials or context during translation, and then somebody in the process can help you out or can take a look in the game and tell you how to fix it. So it will depend on how you work, with who you work, and how the project is held. But it's important. Same is important to know what roles will be involved. If it's only translation, if it's translation and proofreading, or with editing, with testers on, or maybe there are additional people who are helping with the terminology management. There's a lot of aspects that may happen in game localization process, and if you don't consider them, sometimes it's just more difficult. What's difficult also is when you're doing only the translation and there's nothing later, like nobody will take a look at your text after you. It's tricky because we all are only humans, but I'm not saying in a bad way, but we do mistakes, we make mistakes, and it's important to have a second pair of eyes to check the text after us. It's sometimes it's surprising how many mistakes other people can find, and I think we all can have bad days, and working in a team is simply helpful. So being aware of who you're working with and that you can consult your translation decisions, for example, is crucial for the outcome of the localization team work. It's important. One of the important skills is also communication, because you really not often work alone on localization. I think mostly we all work within the teams. Let it be the team with your project manager, or with the client, or with community, for example, of the game, or with your team members in localization team. The communication skills are crucial, because if you cannot communicate well, it will impact how you are perceived as a game localization professional. So investing in communication skills is super great, especially that when you are joining the new company or working on a new project, the first impression also matters. So even the way you are sending your sales emails if you are a freelancer, or how you communicate during your interviews when you are going for in-house positions, it will all impact how you are perceived and how your skills are visible. And it's the same when you are working with the direct clients. If they see you as a professional, you have better chances to score this certain project. So it's important. Harris is adding that QA can be helpful to check the language is properly mapped to the narrative. Yeah, definitely. Localization testing is. I love this topic. It's super interesting to me, because there's different aspects how you can navigate the LQA. So you can do LQA only for flow, to see the flow of the game. We have, especially for indie games, we have projects like that we just need to play a couple of hours just to see if the flow of the localization is the same as desired. So it also helps finding different needs of the text. Like sometimes the text needs to be styled a bit differently because the context requires it, or that you find that, oh no, this terminology doesn't sound that good in the game, so let's change it. So LQA is giving us a lot of options. Of course, there are a lot of more ways for LQA. There's whole scenarios based LQA, or certain aspects of LQA. It's a huge topic, but definitely it helps, and I'm super happy to see that currently in the market, LQA is giving more traction within our clients, and a lot of game developers want to have LQA included in the services. So it's good for the quality, it's good for us as game localizers, because it also opens additional paths for us to grow in the industry, for example, as game localization testers. And for freelancers, it's very often something next to translation or proofreading or editing offers. So yeah, definitely QA is amazing. I absolutely love it, and I'm so happy that so many clients are using this as an actual process of the localization. Okay, so the next skill set is how games are made, and it's not about starting a discussion about the game engines or programming languages or tools that are used in the building games, but it's about the knowledge of knowing how localization fits within the game dev process. Because we often may be asking why we are not receiving game builds for each game that we are working on, or why reference materials are so weird or complex or not complex enough. It's important to be aware of the process when localization takes place in the whole game development. Is it on the beginning of creating the game, or is it just after, just before the game release? What's happened way too often, and then the deadlines are, you know how the deadlines are when the release date is just around the corner. And then there's also the compliance. I already talked about a bit. I mentioned a bit before. Is the process when the game is submitted to be released on the consoles, and then there's the whole part of testing, including localization testing, at least at some parts. So it's very important to understand how localization fits into the whole plan, because it also gives us a sense of information about our deadlines, why they are like that, why they sometimes cannot be prolonged, why do we have to I don't know, work maybe not under stress, although it happens, but why the deadlines are so short in the game localization and not that short in other fields of localization. So yeah, understanding that really helps understanding why our task is important, why it's important for our clients to keep it under the certain time frame. And what also is important is understanding who is making games. When I was talking about the source text, I said that there's a lot of different people working on the games because everyone can make a game, and it's amazing. And I think it's a lot of fun to make games. But for localization, it also goes with some challenges, because when we are working on a text that wasn't written by a native speaker, the quality may be different, or there may be wording that we are unaware of used there. So those things matter. The same with the narrative structure. It can be very different from what we are, from what we know on our daily lives. So the knowledge about how games are made will also help us spot some localization mistakes that spotted early can save weeks of game development, for example. Like I'm talking mostly about the languages where there are complex grammar and the developers doing shortcuts with all the variables. I will talk about them a bit more in the next skills category. But then spotting them early and notifying the client about potential issues can save a lot of time for everyone. So keeping in mind how games are made and what is important in the whole localization process in regards to game development can make us great partners for the developers or publishers, or even for the agency if we work with translation agencies. So this is something that will benefit you not directly, or sometimes directly as well, but give you a better perspective on how the text will work in the game, in all different meanings of this. Okay. Then the technical skills is the sixth category. I already mentioned that I will be talking about variables and placeholders and programming code within the text. Those are aspects that are often the scariest part of game localization, and I agree that there are some projects that are directly from hell. I swear they are so bad to translate and work with, but the good side is that you can learn everything. It's never a dark magic. It's always something approachable, but sometimes it just requires a lot of mental energy from us to understand the technical sides of how it's made by the developers. So this is why the previous point is so important, because it can save us a lot of time if we know that there are different solutions for different declension in some languages or other aspects of things that don't appear in English, for example. Besides working with placeholders and the code, there's also the need to be general technically savvy to understand how to navigate when your computer doesn't want to turn on, or you have internal connection issues, or when memo queue is freezing every 2 minutes. You need to know what to do in this such scenario, especially if you are a freelancer. When you are working in-house, you usually have more help, but for freelancers, you need to have more technical skill set when it comes to techware as well. For freelancers, there are also things like security measures, because everything, or maybe not everything, but so many things are under NDAs, and there are a lot of impact put on. It's a lot of importance put on the security of the files that we are working on, about reference materials, about the translation that we are doing. So being aware of that and finding your own solutions to be, to have the files safe, it's important. Then very important is also CAD tool proficiency, because nowadays in most regions, I think, and most companies are working in CAD tools. And if you don't know them, you are missing part of the potential market and potential project. So working with one CAD tool is, of course, usually enough, because when you know one tool, then you can easily adapt to different tools. And this being able to adapt to different tools is crucial skill, and how you can basically practice it every day by just trying different software and seeing what's new, how it looks like, what are different aspects of your CAD tools that you are using. There's a lot of tutorials online and a lot of materials about CAD tools everywhere. So learning that and being more proficient with how to use it, it's only beneficial to you. Same for using it smartly. So, for example, understanding glossaries, how to use them in localization projects to save you time for repetitions, for example, or using translation memory, how to also save time, and how to check easily what was changed, for example, in fuzzy matches segments. So all those elements are super important to learn, because they save you time, make you more professional, and help you provide a better quality of your text. Same for similar thing is going also for QA, so quality assurance. It's a bit different than Harriet was mentioning in the chat, because there are quality assurance modules on multiple CAD tools, and then they can save you spotting some, I don't know, double spaces or minor mistakes, or more serious mistakes like missing part of the sentence, or missing tags or whatever. There are, of course, also external tools that will help you with quality assurance, like Xbench or other tools like that. So knowing them and knowing how to use them and knowing how much time it will take you to use them, it's important and will help you in your daily work basically from today. So that's super important. Okay, and the last category is just a big vague topic. It's marketing translation skills. I believe, I mean, in game localization, we work with very different texts. There are manuals, there are in-game text, there are dialogues, there are subtitles, text for voiceover, and also marketing text. Sometimes I see online that the marketing text is called as only a marketing text, and everyone can translate it. But I believe that there's a lot of more skill set needed here. We need to understand the goals of the text. Remember that the purpose of the marketing text, especially for the store, especially when we are working on the store descriptions, we need to keep in mind that our translation will be helpful for players to find the game and for developers to actually sell it to players who are interested. So it's not only about translating it, but localizing it so that it can fulfill its goal, so sales and engaging other people who are checking out the Steam page, for example. It's important to be able to fluently adapt to a right style of the text. Some marketing texts are having a very a style that is very unique for the game and is using very unique language that's appearing in the game. It can be tricky when you didn't work on the game itself, but you are working on marketing text, and you can clearly see that there was a specific terminology used, a specific style used, and then you have to do something without knowing how it was translated in the game, for example. So it also requires a bit of universal skills in translation, but also asking questions. Sometimes, of course, it's not possible for us to receive a translation memory with with the game translation, because other different companies were working on that. Because of course, it's very tricky how the work is scheduled in localization. Sometimes developers are working on localization, then publishers are working on a different part of localization, and then publishers can have multiple vendors to do it, and then we have a lot of challenges in our marketing text. So it's definitely a challenge. And then there's understanding marketing language norms and concepts for your language. There are, I don't know, for example, in English, there's enjoy something something, or enjoy playing the game. If you translate it literally in many languages, it will just sound weird. Why are you saying that I should enjoy something? I will decide if I don't want to enjoy the game. You know what I mean? So understanding the concepts of marketing text in your language, they are crucial, because when you translate marketing text literally, you usually don't get the outcome that you really want. And then you need also a skill to understand when you can translate more freely, when you can mix the sentences, when you can change the paragraphs order, for example, and still having it the same effect that the text has in English, for example. So aspects like that, all of that, what I discussed today during this webinar. So the knowledge about the source text that goes beyond just understanding the language that we are translating from, proficient knowledge of our own native language or language that we are localizing games into, understanding the culture that we are coming from, that is in our region. Understanding games, how they are, how players play them, what terminology they expect, but also what's correct in our language. Understanding our industry and our role within it. If we are translators, do we work on the glossary or not? Are we updating the translation memory the correct way? And everything like that. Understanding how games are made and how localization fits into it, or how technical skills, which technical skills we should acquire, and how to use them smartly, and how we benefit from it, how we can excel in different parts of in different aspects of game localization text. Those are skills that you can find different aspects that will apply to your current skill set and current role and current situation in the game localization industry. Of course, I will be talking about it a lot more in the game localizers social media. I also started a newsletter. It will start in next month with more regular insights about game localization. So feel free to sign up. If you have more questions, I'm super happy to answer them. Nix is saying that it's in their experience, the worst is when you have to translate a tagline in rhyme. I actually agree. The taglines are super tricky, and also game titles, especially for mobile games, and when they have to rhyme, for example, and refer to a specific thing at the same time, and also include a reference to mechanics in the game, but also it requires to have a theme of the game referred somewhere in the title, and still you have a character limit of 20 characters. It's super tricky and requires a lot of thinking, and sometimes it's one sentence that can take us a whole day, and the client wants to have it in 2 hours. So it's tricky, and definitely requires a lot of skills here. But personally, I love the localization challenges like that. I love that we need to really think about something, and sometimes starting a project starts with thinking for half a day about the structure of sentence, for example, or whole idea for a style we will be using in the text. I think it's super fun, and it requires a lot of creativity, and it's one of the best things of game localization. So if you enjoyed the webinar, just let me know by email on or direct message on LinkedIn. It was super nice to talk with you today. And do you have any questions about game localization, about your skills, about how to create even better game localizations that you are doing now? Do you have any thoughts, or do you want to talk about something? Do you want to chat about something here? I will give you a moment. I will look at the chat. Emily says, I'm a translation student, but I'm really interested in games localization. I've learned a little bit of coding, but I don't know that much about technical aspects of games. Where would be a good place to start? Also, where can I find out more about getting into the industry? Okay, so I will start with the coding. I think it's super great that you learned a bit about that, because then when you see it in the text, you will know what it may mean. For example, HTML helps, knowing HTML can help a lot, because very often we parts of the text are directly from this programming language. You don't know about technical aspects of the game. So what other aspects that you can use from knowing to code is what are variables, for example. So because they are very often in the games, there won't be like thousands of lines that change only that have a differ only within one number. It will be changed with a variable. And then it's tricky for many languages, but because there's a declension differences between 2 bicycles, 5 bicycles, or 10 bicycles, for example. And then you have to know how to deal it within the text to make a grammatically correct sentence. So when you know how to code, it also help you with understanding more complex structures of, for example, when you have, for example, different genders of characters in the game, and there are different ways to arrange it within the game engine. When you know basics of coding, it will make more sense to you how they work. But learning programming languages just to localize game would be overkill a bit, but knowing at least basics, it can be very, very helpful, because it will also help you understand how games are made and how they work. And for example, it's very silly, but it's super helpful. For example, when you do automatic spell check, you know that the spell check will go line after line after line, because this is how programs are work. That the programming language code is perceived like line after line after line. And this is how it's also spell check is used, for example. So there are minor things that you can use, you can see, and it will be beneficial for you. But also knowing that you can work with variables, for example, it's also something that is very often tested in recruitment tests and localization tests, translation tests that very often are start of the adventure with the certain client. You are asking also, Emily, where you can find more about getting into industry. I recommend LinkedIn and looking for people who are already working in the industry and writing about their experiences, because it changes so much for many different people. But if you are starting and interested, I'm very much suggest working with a localization agency, or working with someone who is already experienced, so you can get feedback. You can learn on others' mistakes, and you can get feedback directly to you during the translation. So if you want to start, I suggest looking for either agencies or localization teams, or people that you can, for example, do internship with, because some game localizers who are freelancers, they also like to work with the junior translators who can help them with bigger projects, and still it's under the advisement of the senior translator. So it can also be a way for you to start to get into the industry. I talked about it yesterday with other person that they started working in the industry as a language coordinator when they wanted a project coordinator when they wanted to be a game translator, but they actually loved the whole technical aspects and maintaining the workflow, that now they want to switch to project management, for example. So it depends also what you want to do in the industry. It's okay to not know now, because the localization industry is super huge, game localization industry as well, because there are a lot of roles in a linguistic part, and then there's a engineering part, and there's a project management part, there's also a leading path. So there's a lot of aspects that you can excel and grow your skills into. And I would say networking helps a lot. Learning from others helps a lot. Talking with people helps a lot. And I hope also that gamelocalizers.com will be helpful in your path as well, because we have planned really cool things for this year. And yeah, I'm excited because this webinar is like the start of this, so a lot of pressure. No problem, Emily. Martina is saying LinkedIn is the most reliable to start for localization and translation in general. At the start, it seems a lot altogether, almost overwhelming, but there's a real huge community on LinkedIn that can help you and redirect you. Definitely. I totally agree. There's a huge community. A lot of people are posting because they are working on their personal brand, so it helps them get some visibility, but also they are helping with sharing a lot of tips or good practices, especially if it's helpful for your language, if you work in a certain language pair, or just to know something about localization strategies in general. Harriet is saying that there are also hashtags on LinkedIn, for example, GamesLog. Yeah, definitely. It's good to browse LinkedIn by hashtags. It can be game logs, game localizers, game translators, also game development. Sometimes it's also nice to follow some game developers who are posting more about how games are made or how localization processes are made, or for example, game writers who are talking about writing strategies, or narrative designers who are talking about how they designing, for example, level on the narrative part of the game level, and what strategies are they using if it's, for example, a horror game, or what's important when you are building a character. It helps so much when you are localizing a character, game characters' dialogues, so you can understand better how which part of how they speak directly influence the narrative building in the game. So definitely using LinkedIn for that is super helpful. Yeah. Thanks everyone for giving tips as well in the chat. Okay, so I think we can wrap up things here now. Thank you so much for joining me here. It's as I said, it was the first webinar, and I've been very nervous, but thank you for being here. I hope it was helpful for you. If you sign up for the newsletter, you will receive the link to the recording next week. And some notes about the topics that were discussing during this webinar. So if anything wasn't super clear, you will have it on writing, so it may be a bit more helpful as well. Maria is also writing that I'm currently an interpreter, but I want to redirect my career into games localization. This was very useful. Are there volunteer opportunities? And if there are, would you recommend starting with that? So I'm not sure about volunteering and how much it can be beneficial. Oh, by the way, if you sign up for the newsletter, you will receive an ebook about starting in game localization and how to get experience that is actually valuable in game localization. So I recommend it if you want to switch your specialization or learn about entering game localization industry. It will be helpful for you. So volunteering is a bit tricky because you can do it, but then you can ask yourself if you will receive feedback on your translations. If not, then you have to think if it's really worth your time to invest into something that you have no profit from, besides, experiencing the game text. So it's something that you may need to make a decision. I know that there are initiatives like localization game jams, for example. So there's a group of people who is organizing translating game text together, and they discuss it and during the translation. So it can be pretty useful also to train your skills. And then to be honest, I would recommend you to talk with some senior game localizers and ask if you can work with them for a moment to do internship, but not like a full-time internship, but for example, for a small fraction of their time or projects, and maybe there's something worth to try. I believe that there's a lot of people who want to help others in the industry. I think this both game and localization industry are super friendly, and there's a lot of people who are sharing their knowledge. Sometimes they are doing consult, not free, but it's also a way to learn more about localizing games and things that are important in your language pair, basically. My risk, sorry if I mispronounced, you may find collectives too. Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of smaller collectives or translation teams that I often their goal is to help each other find new clients, but also be better translators. So yeah, I think even asking about it on LinkedIn and using the right hashtags can help you find people who are in the same situation or who can help you finding what you need to grow your skills. I will also be this year releasing ebooks with exercises in game localization, and there will be in multiple languages. So when you sign up for the newsletter and you write down which language pair you work on, it's also information for me which languages you are using, so I can also, releasing earlier the ebooks with the certain language pair within the certain language pair that are useful for people who are following game localizers. So I hope it will also be helpful. Sophia is asking, how do we sign up for the newsletter? Go to the localizers.com website, and then you will have a form on the main screen to sign up, and that's all. And then you confirm your email in your inbox, and you will receive the confirmation, and that's it, and you're there. So it's simple as that. Yeah. Maria sounds great. Thanks a lot. Also about the ebook, the website is no load. Oh no. Okay, so please contact me directly on LinkedIn on the Game Localizers profile, and I will try to fix it as soon as possible, and then I can add your email manually. Worst case, I hope the website will be working again very soon, but yeah, I need to check what happened. I thought it was all prepared, but yeah, thanks for letting me know. If you send me a direct message on Game Localizers profile on LinkedIn or directly to me, it will be fine, and I will share everything when it works. Okay. Thank you so much for being here with me. I hope we'll see each other next events. And oh, thank you, Harry, so much for the feedback. It's super valuable to me. Thank you so much, it's great to have you here, and I hope we will be seeing each other in the internet space more in the future. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, and see you very soon. Oh, thank you. I'm super glad that you joined, everyone. Okay. Have a great day and evening. Bye bye.